Welcome to the Miles on Repeat podcast. Today we have Kendra Wilson with us. She is the queen of that ultra running advice on Facebook. So if you follow that, you most definitely know this guest. Hi, Kendra. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Doing pretty good. Doing pretty good. So I brought you on today just because, I've seen some of your story and I found it to be quite inspiring. So I wanted to learn more about you and uh, kind of your background. So just to start, tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're from, what you do, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I live in Denver right now, but I grew up in Northwest Indiana, super poor, grew up in poverty. The house I grew up in caved in from black mold at some point, and not the greatest family history. So, and that all plays a role into my life now. As therapy is also an option for us ultra runners, but here we are. So, And, I always had a lot of health problems growing up. I moved out of my family's house at 17. My dad was abusive. My mom was pretty narcissistic and just kind of like buried her head under the sand. And, dad didn't contribute to the household at all. And there was just no reason to put up with what she did. And so I was like, cool, well, I've got a job, I've got money, I've got a car, I'm out. Paid my way through college, traveled the world, and landed. I lived in New Zealand for a year after undergrad. And then when I came back, I just was like, I couldn't go back to Indiana. It just was not no hate for anyone who lives there, but it's just, you can't live in the most beautiful place on earth and then go back to Indiana. Yeah, it's not good. So I moved to Albuquerque for a while. On the way to Albuquerque, I stopped at a friend's in Woodland Park, Colorado, and was like, I'm going to live here in 6 months. And of course, I ended up here and have been here since. And it was when I was 29. I met my daughter's father when I was 28. And when I was 29, I got pregnant with my daughter and found out her dad wasn't the greatest human being. I'm pretty naive. I was never into drugs or anything. I was always kind of into that human potential. I'm not that I didn't drink way too much in my 20s like everybody else, but just never went down the bandwagon of drugs and chaos in that way. And so I didn't know what the signs were. He was a pretty like laid back chill dude. Now I get it. Can't imagine what he'd be like without all that stuff. But I was 17 weeks pregnant when I found all this out. And so my stress levels were like, on a scale of 1 to 10, they were at least a 15. And I started to deteriorate. I'd always had health problems on and off my whole life, mostly on sometimes. And, I just always like I had cancer when I was 17. I have a little scar where they removed my thyroid. And, it's no surprise with the level of stress I grew up in. And once I got pregnant with my daughter and everything happened with her dad, I started to fall apart and get really sick. Gave birth to my daughter. She wasn't well. I wasn't well. And by the time, I had to live with him for a while because I was too sick to work, but we weren't together since I was pregnant and that was stressful. And, but he was working. He knew he was an idiot and screwed up and just wanted to help. And, whatever, everything happens the way it needs to. We all learn. And by the time I had officially left him, my health just started declining and there wasn't much I could do at one point. I became completely bedridden for a while, mostly bedridden for the larger part of about 3 years. My daughter was between 1 and 4 years old, and I would have dizzy spells, blackout spells. I smelled ammonia when my daughter was 9 months old. She and I both couldn't keep our body temperatures up. She was losing weight. No matter what I ate when I was nursing her, she would just get sick. And I was just eating like chicken and lettuce for a while, and I had all those detox effects. I smelled and tasted formaldehyde. A lot of people ask me how I know what formaldehyde smells like. One of my degrees is in anatomy and physiology, and I had to do cadaver labs. So I definitely, if you can smell it, you can taste it, and it's gnarly. And there's nothing you could do to. No mask is big enough to not smell a cadaver. It's gnarly. And that's what I smelled. And my daughter would sweat formaldehyde. She'd be in these cold sweats, and we both we were dying when she was 9 months old, and nobody knew why. And for those people who know me, know that I'm spiritual, I'm not religious, no, I'm not judging anyone for what they believe as long as it doesn't hurt anybody else. So I, I've always been crazy intuitive. Like I had a show once where people would call in and with Jill Nicolini and she was on Sex in the City, and she's this reporter in New York City, and people would call in and I would do like intuitive readings. I do them for free sometimes on Facebook just for fun. I've just always had this wild intuition, and I'll have these dreams that come true, and if there's something I'm really supposed to know, I'll get this dream and it's like repeating itself. And it was 11/11/2017, and I had this dream all night, like these beings were just telling me like, hey, you've got Lyme disease and you've got a few other things going on, but like wake up and go to the hospital. And at that point my daughter's father was living with us, just sleeping on the couch in the living room, and he was sober that night, which was a miracle. My daughter never slept through the night. She slept through that night. I got up, went to the hospital in the middle of the night, 3 o'clock in the morning, and the doctor was like, this is strange, but it sounds like chronic Lyme disease. And I didn't know what that was, what it meant. I probably had it my whole life. It can be congenital. My parents weren't healthy people. And, it's not just ticks. It can come from mosquito, spiders. After I learned more about it, pretty much everybody has it in their body. Nobody tests negative, meaning zero. It's either high or low. So it's basically a part of the microbiome. So I always asked resourceful questions. Why the hell is it making me sick? And I mean, I had chronic neurological long-term Lyme. So I would lose the feeling in my body. I would black out like that. I would have memory lapses. I had some in high school and nobody knew why. And I would have somewhere, I'd be walking around on days that I wasn't, crazy sick yet with my daughter wearing her. Movement kind of helped flush out the junk. So I would go for little walks and just say positive affirmations out loud. I didn't know what the hell I was doing, but I just knew like something was wrong and I didn't know what. And, we found out later it was Lyme and a multitude of other diseases that come with it. And, I had to do the $3,000 blood test because the typical tests are not accurate. It's based on your immune system. And I had a severe immune disease as well called mast cell activation syndrome. I started to become allergic to everything, not just foods, like the typical gluten and dairy. I cut all that out, but it was like random stuff. People would touch me and my skin would turn into welts, and it would be random, like it turns on and off. Well, my master's degree is in consciousness, which is heavy in neuroscience and quantum physics. And I learned a lot about what was happening and what I was doing with regard to epigenetics as well. I was so stressed out internally that my external environment was irrelevant. I had to fix what was going on inside. But it took me a while to get there. I mean, sometimes air would trigger me, sometimes water. I couldn't drink tap water. Not I'm kind of hippie, and I'll drink the filtered water and stuff, but even then certain filtered waters, I went everywhere with an EpiPen. My daughter wasn't much better. We met some holistic chiropractors that had this like crazy machine that really started to work, and he treated us for free for a while. I got better. I was able to jog for a while. We did a trial. I did some trial medications. I started getting worse again. I did stem cell therapy, injected up my nose into my brain, cervical injections. It's like a giant needle that goes into your neck. Your cervical spine is your neck. And like none of it worked. I just kept getting worse and worse until not that long ago. Gosh, maybe it was 2022. Yes, it was 2022. And it was February. I was really stressed out. My daughter was starting pre-K. And I just was a mess mentally, emotionally, just trying to deal with the health stuff not well. I was up and down. I had gotten kind of better, but not great, just finding some stability. We had been homeless for a while, just couch surfing, sick and bedridden, couldn't work. So it was a lot, just snowball effect of stress. And in February, I couldn't breathe anymore. I mean, I had been short of breath for years on and off, but I just couldn't breathe no matter what I did. And I collapsed, and my daughter had to call 911. And went away and my gut just said, hey, I need to have my sweat chloride tested. And they're like, well, we don't do that in the hospital. Let's send you to National Jewish. Let's get your sweat chloride checked. You're crazy. It's not going to be cystic fibrosis, but we can't explain why you can't breathe and nothing's working. So, have a bunch of inhalers. Let's put Band-Aids on it and let's get you out the door. Yeah, it's fair. That's fine. I have nothing, that they could figure out. Sweat chloride was high, diagnosed with cystic fibrosis. Like, cool. They're like, you're, in your late 30s, diagnosed with cystic fibrosis. There's not a whole lot we can do. It was weird. And there's not, it's kind of like, we'll see how long we can prolong your life, but people die from this. This is a terminal disease. In the meantime, I had a routine scan for my thyroid, just because when you have cancer, you get scans for the rest of your life, no matter what, and it had been a few years. And with all my health issues, doctors were like, we need to do a scan. So they do the scan and it looked like I had a metastatic lymph node. Every radiologist at UC Health Denver looked at it and they're like, look, we just got to schedule you for surgery and biopsy. Like, we want to just kind of biopsy surgery. Like, let's just do it because it looks bad. It's never not cancer when it looks this bad. And so somebody on a freaking Lyme disease group told me when I talked about having cystic fibrosis and just random updates, like, okay, here's what I'm dying from now. I really was playing that victim mentality role really well. It was subconscious, but that's what it was. And I made it my identity. I was the full-time sick person. Someone suggested Dr. Joe Dispenza's book, You Are the Placebo. And I was like, I've tried everything from shamanic healing to, medical trials. I stung myself with live bees, and I've done every kind of treatment there is. And the reason I wasn't getting better was not the cystic fibrosis, the high sweat chloride. It was none of those things. It was nothing changes in our lives until we change ourselves. It's my favorite quote from Dr. Joe Dispenza. I read his book, You Are the Placebo, and it just hit home. It made perfect sense. And I realized I made myself sick. And that's, a huge responsibility to take and to own, because I could have easily just died. And I could have said, no, this is genetic. This is all this stuff. That's what doctors said. You die from this. There's no cure for any of these diseases. No Lyme disease cure works. And it's because when you're stressed out, no organism in nature can survive the effects of long-term stress. And when you're not even conscious that your brain is addicted to stress, you have these receptors. And when we're stressed, we're meeting the needs of the receptors. And the body is so intelligent that that's what becomes normal. And we get afraid of the unknown, of anything that's not normal, because of the amygdala. We're programmed to survive. And we're stuck in these fight or flight states. And when we're there, no new information can enter the brain and process properly. So it's a really vicious cycle that I was able to become aware of. And I told one of my friends, like, I read that a lot of spontaneous remissions that are all explained by science. Dr. Joe's all about the science. There's no woo-woo, no dogma, no religion, none of that rubbish. I mean, that's great. Those things are wonderful. They keep people going. I believe in a lot of that stuff too, but science is that contemporary language of mysticism that he really latches onto and does all the research, shows there's labs, you're looking at brain scans, you're learning, and if you don't already know this stuff, it's written for doctors, but he breaks it down and he's a great teacher. So the book just really resonated. It made sense with everything I was already learning in my master's program, because my life wasn't stressful enough. I thought, I'll just get another degree while I'm dying. And, it hit home. And I told one of my friends in my master's program, which was online, but he lives in Denver, and we connected and became, great friends. His name's Jordan. And he offered to pay for my retreat. There was a retreat in Denver in a couple of months. And I'm like, look, I'll do anything. I'm doing his meditations. They make sense. They're crafted in science, and I'm feeling different, but I feel like I need to go to a retreat so I can really understand this stuff more. And the progressive one was just 3 days. I went to it. I took a lot because as a single mom, I don't talk to any of my family. My dad's dead anyway, but which is whatever. But my mom, just too unhealthy to have around my daughter and me, and my family is just not there. So I'm fully estranged and very challenging to have support as a single mother, in general. So I really had to reach far to get help with my daughter for this 3-day retreat. I'm driving back and forth. I'm up really early. And at that time, it was hard to even be upright and awake for very many hours at a time. So it was so much work. But something happened at that retreat. And I'll explain that in a minute, but I basically just started crying and couldn't stop. I thought nothing happened in this meditation. You're just getting out of your conscious thinking mind and expanding into the blackness behind your eyes, which, and I study consciousness and near death experiences. Makes sense. That's what people experience when they die. You're just connecting to that unified field of physics and getting out of the rubbish cycle in your brain. And when you focus on nothing, the mind comes down from that heightened brainwave state of high beta, which is stress, down to an alpha coherent, relaxed, repairing, restoring brainwave state, where the body can start to be like, oh my God, thank God, she's out of here. Now we can start repairing stuff. Let's get our little helpers in there to fix things. And I lost it after that meditation. We went on a break. I couldn't eat anything. I was allergic to everything. So I'm bringing the 2 foods I could eat, and I'm like, eating them cold and just crying and cried for the whole next day. And I just dumped out so much crap that I saw who I was in the world, and I didn't like what I saw. And I knew, that was the responsibility I had to take and change that person if I wanted to change my life. And so, within a week of that retreat, I just started feeling better, and I started challenging myself, knowing that anything is possible, and that unified field of physics, there are unlimited possibilities that actually do exist. Like, it's science and it makes sense. And there's a possibility that I don't have to die. And during that retreat, I saw spontaneous remissions, people who are respirators dying in a wheelchair, and they're up walking and dancing, and I mean, you can't just make stuff up at these retreats. You got to show medical history. Like, if you can't just say I healed cancer, healed MS, you got to show the before and after. You got to prove you were diagnosed with something. He has a high level of integrity, and there's, and you could tell, I mean, when someone hasn't walked most of their life, it's not pretty, but they're doing it. So that week I just saw possibility, just like the 4-minute mile. And I'm like, I always loved to run, always been a runner, never distance, never more than a couple miles at a time. I was just like, I'm going to go run a mile and clear my mind. And that's always kind of been what I did. And later that week, I just went out and tried to run, went from mostly bedridden to like, screw this, I'm going to go for it. And I ran around the block, and just like the person getting out of the wheelchair who, might be real shaky and like holding on for dear life and need help, but they're doing it, and that's what we focus on. We don't focus on perfection. We focus on the outcome. That's what I mean. I came home and I shit my pants. I was dying, my lungs physically hurt. My heart hurt. Not a proud moment, but I was celebrating. I'm like, cool. I have a shower. I have a, washing machine. I'm going to throw this stuff up, get cleaned up, and we're going to do this again tomorrow. I had to take a nap. I didn't feel great, but it didn't kill me. I didn't die. So I kept going, and it took a while, but that was in May of 2022. By the summer, I ran my first 5K in my whole life. And, it felt like I had my daughter, she was 4, and I'm pushing her, maybe 5, pushing her in the stroller. It's on Instagram, on my Kendra_rising Instagram. If you scroll way down, you'll see it. And if you scroll over, I do post my labs. I've had people say, there's some documentary about some woman who made stuff up that someone tried accusing me of. And I don't care to, skeptics can bugger off, but I do have my labs that show I have Lyme disease, my high SWAT chloride and stuff. I have other labs somewhere, I had to show all this, but it was progressive. It took time to heal. I didn't heal overnight, but I meditated every dang day. And I mean, I showed up, and it got to the point where, I went to a week-long retreat, and then more stuff started to heal. I started to tolerate more food, and, over time I healed completely. And like I said, that wasn't that long ago. Then I really started getting into distance running October of 2023. And I went from cool, I ran a 10K over the summer, not an official one, just like running around a park while my daughter's in summer camp. And, I ended up getting a really great job that was really flexible. Like things just started turning around after I started doing the work on myself. Nothing changes in our lives until we change ourselves. If we're a victim, guess what? We've got our blinders on. We're not going to see the beautiful opportunities that are endless and around us and magical and miracles. And you got to pull yourself up and be grateful for the really tiny wins, even if it's, oh my gosh, that leaf outside is so pretty. It must have been put there just for me to see in this moment. Just, the more you focus on being grateful and really meaning it, the more you heal. And it's just what I did. It's not about visualizing your future or like saying affirmations. Your brain is like, that's bullshit. And it doesn't leave the brainstem. If you're not feeling the emotions, which is the neuroplasticity aspect of it, which is my area of focus now, it doesn't go anywhere. So you don't even have to visualize your future. You just have to feel the truth in your heart. Because the whole time I was sick, my heart was like, no, we're crossing finish lines. I haven't run a marathon yet. I didn't even know about ultras back then. Yeah. And so my heart just felt that feeling of there's a truth in there that I can't ignore. And I think a lot of people ignore their heart, or maybe they don't hear it or feel it, or we're so stuck in stress mode, we're not even aware that it's speaking to us, but it will speak to you if you can take even just 5 minutes a day to slow down and calm it down. So I ran 10Ks over the summer. Still a little bit of issues with my health. Not great, but not awful. And by October, at the end of that, 2023, I was like, let's see what we can do. And just started adding a mile a week. By December, I was running 18 miles. And then I had a bajillion injuries because I wasn't feeling enough. And the body will pull from your bones and you will get stress fractures if you're malnourished. So, I wasn't, intentionally, not like, oh, I'm going to starve myself. It just, I was 5K runners, you can run in a deficit. You can't run in a deficit when you're 18, 20 miles. So, and beyond. So I went to heaps of PT. And by May of the next year, 2024, I was like, no, I'm going to sign up for this backyard ultra. My intention is to run a marathon, And I did. I ran my first marathon in June of last year, or June of 2024. And then I was like, well, that didn't kill me. And I wasn't wrecked afterwards. I see people's videos that are waddling and, they can't walk or go upstairs. And I was fine, like running the next day. So I signed up for a 50K in September. It was 100 freaking degrees in Denver in September still. And a trail race. I got into trail running. Now it's my favorite thing in the world. And I was fine. I finished. My mind was like, hey, it's going to be really freaking hot. We know this. We don't like the heat. Back in the day when we were sick, we'd pass out in the heat. And I healed all the food stuff too. I eat whatever I want now, but sometimes too much. Every part of the disease is gone. It just went away over time. The more awareness I had, the more it went away. I just used that neuroplasticity. I knew what my truth was. I knew what good food tastes like and doesn't make me sick or go anaphylactic. The breathing changed. I epigenetically signaled my healthy genes to express themselves, and I don't signal the genes for cystic fibrosis, nor do I have high sweat chloride anymore. Like, you can do that. It's not woo woo or dogma. It's science. The body doesn't know the difference if you're internally feeling good or bad or not. And so I just had to chill the freak out. And I did. And so I ran my first marathon, my first 50K, and I was fine. I had a little hip tendonitis and went to PT, stabbed some, did some dry needling, and it was all right. So that was just in September of last year. And December, Mark D'Ambrosia texted me and was like, I think you should run 100 miles. Like, there's a race in February 1st. It's in Las Vegas, the Bootleg Boogie. 11 out of 10 recommend. And he's like, you've come so far. Like, you're so strong-minded. You meditate. You got your mind right. I'm like, dude, I am severely undertrained to run 100 miles. Like, maybe next year, But so I was like playing with this idea. The seed was planted. He believed in me so hard. And I don't, I guess I kind of know why, but we can never fully see ourselves the way other people see us in the world. And I think that was part of it. But I was running with one of my favorite trail runners, Terry Miller. He's like Rafiki from The Lion King. And I think I'm more like Pumbaa these days than, but he and I were just a regular trail run over Green Mountain in Denver. And he was telling me, he's like, so you're going to run that 100 miles? I'm like, no, I'm going to wait. I'm going to run a 50-mile first, then 100K. I'm going to go through the rules, whoever makes rules in life. I don't know who they are, but it's irrelevant in my life, apparently. Like, I'm going to do it the right way. And I'm going to really over prepare and be strong and ready and, do it right. And he's like, you've had a rocky health history. You're going to be a year older. You're going to be 39 this year. You'll be pushing 40 next year. Like, and that's fine. He's in his 50s, early 50s, and he's crushing hundo still. But, we get to the top, close to the top of the mountain, and he's coming around this corner, about to summit. He's like, how would you feel if something happened and you couldn't, like something happened with your health, your body, and you couldn't run that 100 miles? Would you regret not running this race in February? And I just started bawling. Like, that's how you know it's the truth, when it hits you in the heart like that. And then we get to the top, and there's this freaking golden eagle just sitting there. Like, it's a giant eagle. And Terry walks right up to it, and he's talking to it and taking a video. And I just kneel down. I'm still like crying my eyes out. I get a little teary just talking about it, because it's just, it's one of those defining moments that I think a lot of people don't talk about when they have those feelings in their heart. It's the same feeling when I knew the truth, when I was told I was going to die. It's the same feeling that I had when I knew I was going to be crossing finish lines, when I learned about Courtney Dauwalter and ultra marathons. I'm like, I got to do this. How did I come to this planet and not do that? I'm not wearing this stupid meat suit to just die. Like, I'm going to do epic stuff. And so I just felt like, whether you believe in signs or not, if you do, for me, that was my sign. Like, I've got to sign up for this race. And the second I did, and we'll circle back around to this, but I run a nonprofit. It's been rocky because of, government stuff, losing funding, federal funding. I started the nonprofit. It's called the Global Coherence Project. I broke down everything I learned from my master's program with neuroscience and from Dr. Joe and the way I healed, and broke it down to 5 minutes a day in guided self-reflection. We have these free recordings. I've been doing that full time for a while. And I haven't been able to take a paycheck in like 6 months. It's been crazy. And as a single mom living off savings, like, I couldn't afford a trip to Vegas right now, or even justify it. Not into putting stuff on credit cards. I want to be a responsible adult, and I have good credit. Like, we want to keep it that way. So I just posted on Facebook. I'm like, hey, I'm thinking about running my first 100 miles. It's stupid. I didn't even have a month to train at that point. It was crazy to even get some long runs in. It didn't make logical sense, but I knew in my heart it was already done. And I just posted, I'm like, if anyone wants to support, here's my Venmo. And people pulled through. It got taken care of. People, sure, they don't want me to mention them, but I love you. One person was like, what do you need to make this happen? Another person's like, how about plane tickets for you and Sophia? My daughter was turning 8 on January 31st. So the race was the next day. I'm like, I can't go to Vegas and not bring my kid. Plus, I don't have anyone to watch her here. One of our board members and a very dear friend of mine who I met at a Joe Dispenza retreat, a follow-up last year in January, one of the most magical times of my life, met her. She's in Vegas. She's a great human being, loves kids, raised a daughter just fine. So she offered to keep my kids so I can run this race. And people just pulled together to volunteer, to come with. My friend Angie Wright, she's such a badass ultra runner. She's a mom, she's got 3 boys, and she ran her first 100 Kodiak last fall, and was like, I don't want to come and pace you because at mile 60 might be too late. I'm going to come and run every step of the way with you and get you there, because I know you've got it in you. I know you can do it. And my biggest run was a 50K, like, that was my PR, and it wasn't fast or pretty, but I got it done, and I did it with a smile. And, and so, like, everything just magically kind of fell into place. And we got to the race February 1st. Saul, the legendary Saul, he's from Lithuania, lives in Seattle. The guy who runs barefoot with a tire, 200-mile week, Saul. It was like, I'll come pace you. And a few people pitched into his Venmo to help, with his plane ticket. And some crew who volunteered had to drop their volunteer crewing duties because they had 104 fevers. And I was like, no, they were still trying to come. And I'm like, you can keep that. I love you. Thank you for being willing to, but we'll get it done. As long as Saul can watch my kid while my friend works. And he was totally okay with it. He's so good. They had met before. He'd come out and run a race that I had to DNS because, I had like pneumonia or some crap and couldn't run. Anyway, so it wasn't like Saul was a stranger. Don't worry, errands of the world. It's okay. I don't leave my kid with strangers. Saul's safe. He stayed the night at my house before. Anyway, so he came, watched my kid. My girlfriend came in, picked up Sophia, and then, he picked us up at mile 50. But like the race itself, my longest run, I did a 20-mile long run and a 30-mile long run. And I tapered for 3 weeks because I just couldn't get sitters to do a long run the week after my 30-miler. And that's just the best I could do. So we was showing up real rested that day. We were not overtrained to any extent. And I asked around a lot, good ultra running advice, bad ultra running advice. But I asked some legendary people, and a lot of them pre-tape their feet before races. I'm not prone to blisters in a 50K. We had 6 water crossings. I only wear Speedlands. All my injuries went away when I switched to Speedland. PT was helping, and it's great to address weaknesses, but sometimes it can be the shoes, I think. And for me, no shoe works but Speedland. So I'm like, cool, I've got bougie feet. Wonderful. But they work, and they have little drain holes. They dry quick. No foot issues whatsoever in my 50K. So it was kind of dumb. And Angie was like, why are you taping your feet? Don't do new stuff on race day. I'm like, yeah, but I've never run 100 before. I also have no idea how to tape feet. I've looked at pictures, but videos would probably be more helpful, or maybe just like a straight up, hey, tape my feet and show me. So anyway, by mile 7, my feet were completely wrecked from the tape. It bunched up, and I had it around each toe in different parts, and I can whip up my feet if you want to see them still, because it was just a few weeks ago. But they were wrecked. And, I was, Angie's very great at being a coach and getting people there. So she was kind of like, okay, come on, let's not screw around at aid stations. Let's go. And I wasn't addressing things the way I needed to. So by mile like 30, 35, I don't remember exactly, somewhere in there, I think it was mile 34, I was like, I got to stop and fix my feet, and Saul looked at me. By mile 13, my back felt bad. I mean, I'm the like thick ultra runner with all the snacks. So probably why aid stations were plenty, but I got to have my snacks. My hamstrings were so like everything just hurt. Weird stuff that hadn't hurt in ages hurt. Mile 13, like 7, my feet are wrecked. Mile 13, my whole body from my back down is just wrecked. And I'm like, mentally, I'm like, well, this is what we're doing today. But physically, my body was like, but why? So 34, stop and get my feet fixed. Carrie Cooper, the foot goddess. I mean, I kind of get choked up here too, but when I healed, love is what healed me. Loving myself, love from other people, and feeling like kind of pressured and pushed those first 34 miles, which was important. It saved my race, honestly. So I couldn't have finished without that. But I'm like, I was taking a lot of gels instead of real food just so I can keep going and not have to stop and walk and eat. I was running, but like I stopped. It took 30 minutes to fix my feet because they were screwed badly. I mean, they were just toast. And so it sucked. And it doesn't feel better when you get your feet fixed. You get relief from popping the blisters, but man, they hurt way worse for a while afterwards. And she's had me switch socks. And I thank God I brought some meninges and, had the toe socks. I had blisters around every toe, underneath the nails, like all on my foot. My heel was screwed. I was wearing Zensa sleeves. I love them. I think they're great, but I just can't wear them in 100. More than like a marathon maybe is too much. And I didn't need them anyway. Like I don't get shin splints anymore. I think I was just over prepared or whatever. I didn't know. I've never run 100 miles before. So she fixed my feet, told me I looked great, even though they looked horrible. They always tell you that at the aid station, so you don't quit, and set me on my way. And I just felt so recharged from her love. I could tell she wanted to see me succeed. Another woman to woman, there's that camaraderie. There's, let's tilt each other's crown when it's, off. And so it just felt really great. I felt so much love, and I needed that. And I didn't know I needed love to get through a race. I thought I needed, like, hey, come on, you got to go. Like, that just wasn't working for me. And then by mile 50, we picked up Saul. And then I realized, like, I just had to have everybody like, hey, let's stop and walk for a minute. Like, I grew up in an abusive household, and yeah, it doesn't phase me anymore, but the way that you talk to me does. When you tell me, like, hey, why are you slowing down? What's going on? You gotta go, you gotta go. You're not gonna make the cutoff. And maybe that's true, but for me, I'm gonna throw my shit down, my poles, and I'm gonna go home. You can't push me. I've got to stop at the aid stations and get what I need. And so for me, I was like, okay, you have to talk to me like you talk to a toddler. Positive reinforcement. If you tell me, like, man, you looked so good on that hill, like, even if I look like a freaking corpse, staggering up this damn hill. But I wasn't bad at mile 50. I was worse at mile 30. But, you tell me that, I'm going to do it. I'm going to go for it. And I'm going to do my best. So, so they got the, memo, and they were like, okay, positive reinforcement. Hey, you had a good pace that last mile. Let's keep doing that. That worked. I was doing much better. I was slowing down and eating real food, which was helping my guts from all the gels. I never had like a stomach issues or anything, but gels will go through you after 50 miles of only consuming mostly gels. It just wasn't great. So when you're stopping a crap on the trails every 2-3 miles, it takes time. Like, my pace was real slow after that. I could run still, but I'm stopping a crap on the trails every 3 miles. So, but it was also okay. I kind of had that turnaround after I got my feet fixed, and that really helped me turn around. But then, like, mile 68, my feet were completely wrecked again. And I was like, okay, I'm feeling good mentally. Like, I felt better at mile 60 than I felt at mile 20. I was just in pure bliss. There was never a moment when I was like, screw running, I'm never doing this again. The whole time I was mentally in it. And I think that's what got me there with, well, my heart, I think all the love and stuff, but just having my brain and my heart kind of in sync. But I just felt so good. It's like mile 62, and it's the middle of the night, and I'm like, man, we just saw this great sunset, mildly hallucinating, but not bad. And just like pure bliss. I've never done drugs, other than, like, maybe marijuana, but I never like any of it. I don't like feeling, not myself. And so, I can't compare it to anything, but I felt ecstatic bliss most of the time, despite the issues that were coming up. And my mind was right. My heart was in it. And by mile like 68, I was like, we got to fix my feet. I got to stop. It's going to take a while. They are screwed at this point completely. Carrie took off the tape and redid it. She's still there, thank God. And I didn't cry when I gave birth to my daughter after 18 hours of back labor. I didn't cry. And yeah, just pain is pain. It doesn't matter. And that's, Terry, my friend Terry was like, it's just pain, And I also thought about Sally McRae, and I think it was Moab, when her feet were wrecked after 5 miles. I'm like, if she can do that, I can do this. And Simon Gerard was like, hey, the good part about blisters is it's not an injury. It'll suck, but you can still run on them. So, like, you can still see it if you want me to show you. But, like, and I ran today too, and I think it's like fresh, but the heel is so, like, it was bad. And this is weeks and weeks. I'm probably going to lose it. I've got a black toe too, but you can see, like, the scars from maybe you can't see them, but the scars from the blisters are still there. And she had to pop that thing so many times. And by the last time I cried, and I was screaming a little bit, like, oh, and getting my sock and shoe on over that. I'm like, but I knew that was the last time I'm going to mess with my feet. If they're wrecked, they're wrecked. If I get blisters, they pop in my shoe. I just don't care anymore. This is the last time I'm going to do this. We're going to fix them. And we've got 50 Ks left. We can do this. I staggered, and the race was 16.7 mile loops, but each, like, 16.7 mile loops was basically 3 loops. So the first one, you go up this giant freaking mountain, in Boulder City, Nevada. And then you veer off to the side, and you come back around after like 6.5 miles or 6.7 miles. And you go back up the hill. So you go back to your tent, main aid station. And then you have 2 little loops, one this way, one that way. And anyway, it all equals 100 at the end. But this damn hill. So I've got my poles and I'm putting a lot of pressure on my hands to take off my feet, and I'm power hiking this hill. And we get to the top, and Saul was talking to someone at the aid station, and it's the middle of the night, mile 70. And Angie's like, hey, come walk with me. She's like, look, some of my most elite friends have had to DNF because of their feet. You can't run on feet like that. Like my friend Mark, who encouraged me to sign up, his feet were pretty bad. They weren't as bad as mine, and he DNF'd. And there's no shame in that at all because they were toast. They were bad, and this crap hurts. But my heart was just so in it. And I get really choked up here. But when she gave me permission to quit, I lost it. I was like, I didn't come. This is Angie's, mantra, but I didn't come this far to come this far. Like I may not make, and it was because I probably wasn't going to make the cutoff at that point. I would have had to do 20-minute miles, and you know, I can't do a bunch of gels because if I have to stop and poop every 2 miles, it's going to take too much time. And it's like, okay, what are we going to do? So I told Angie, I'm like, I love you so much. Like, who signs up to do 100 miles with someone? Like that takes a lot of love. But like, go run your own race and go finish because I may not, but I have Saul to pace me, and I'm gonna run I'm gonna do what I can. I don't know, but if I'm not dead, I'm gonna keep going. And I think that was kind of what healed me when I was sick. I'm not dead. I'm gonna run another loop around the block tomorrow. Maybe I'll do two. I didn't die. I shit myself, but I didn't die. When I was reintroducing foods, it was like, well, I reintroduced dairy and shit myself, but I didn't die. I didn't have an anaphylactic attack. So I'm gonna try it again next week, and then maybe 3 days after that. And we're gonna warm the body up. Same with, I'm not a huge drinker. My family were alcoholics, but I reintroduced alcohol. Like I'll have a beer, I'll have a glass of wine. Nothing crazy. I hate being drunk, but like I just want that normality that I don't have to have limitations. I'm an unlimited being, and I came here to prove that in the world. So let's be unlimited. Let's not say we're unlimited, but I can't have alcohol. It'll make me sick and die. No, like I noticed some things that were different for a while, but then it's like taming a wild horse. Like you just gotta give it a little kick in the old body in this meat suit and just be like, this is what we're doing. And that's kind of what I did. I'm like, look, this is what we're doing. We're running 100 miles. I know the truth in my heart, and I want my little girl to see me cross that finish line. She saw me dying. She saw me bedridden. Like, I want her to see me cross that finish line. And so, Saul came back. He found us, wherever he was at. And he's like, I told him the plan. I'm like, hey, we're going to just let Angie go so she doesn't DNF and miss the cutoff because of me. And, and she didn't want to, but I'm like, don't wreck your race. You deserve a buckle. You worked your ass off. Like, I'm fine. I've got Saul. I've got support. And Saul's like, look, what if, a few miles in, I'm like power hiking faster, ignoring the pain in my feet. It does go numb after a while. And he's like, what if we just run 100 miles anyway? What if you miss the cutoff, but you still run 100 miles and you don't get a buckle? I'm like, okay, radical acceptance, worst case scenario. Let's do it. Yeah. I'm not a huge worst case scenario fan. I do believe in possibility, but just having that, like, no, I'm going to run 100 miles today, no matter what. So I decided that, and I made up my mind, and that's what we did. Well, I started buying time. Saul's like, okay, if you really think you can make the cutoff, we have to do 20-minute miles. Let's do our best. He wasn't forceful. He was gentle, like, hey, okay, aid station, give me your pack. You just keep going. I will fill it. I'll get your tailwind ready. 3 scoops. That's my jam. Like it's 300 calories or 100 calories per scoop. I'm like, give me all the nutrients. He's got me potato chip mustard sandwich, like just the wildest shit, but it gets you there. When you're wacky in the middle of the night and watching the sunrise again, like you do what you have to. And so he just was incredible support. Even from watching my kid to like taking care of my corpse at mile 70, and beyond. He was just epic. Just really, everything you could ever want in a pacer. Just such a good dude, the kindest human being on earth. And there was one point I have like stage fright. I don't even like my kid in the bathroom with me when I'm pooping, but I'm like squatting. There's the trail. I maybe walked like a meter off the trail, did a 360. I don't see people, but if I do, well, I guess you're welcome. I don't know what else to say, and I think at one point I was making eye contact with Saul while pooping, I'm just like delirious. And they just did not care anymore. I'm like, there's just no, it's fine. This is fine. So he got me there, and after a while I started buying time. He made me stop and slow down and eat food. my pack was stuffed with snacks, but you just get so tired. But I was happy. It wasn't like, I'm exhausted. I hate this. But you don't even want to unzip and eat. So he'd stop and he'd load up with bananas and just break it off. Hey, how's that feel? Good. Okay, good. Eat another one. How you feeling? Can you do another bite? Like, I didn't lose my stomach, but after a while, stuff just doesn't sound good anymore. I could only have 8,000 Uncrustables before I'm like, okay, I don't think I want 8,001 anymore. Like, they just don't sound good anymore. So, the aid station volunteers were all ridiculously amazing, as they typically are. But it's my first 100. I don't know what to expect, but it was great. And when the sun came up the next day, it's the desert. There's no clouds, and it was so hot. And even Saul was like, "Man, this sucks." But aid station volunteers gave us their ice. Their little bits of ice they put in a bag. He's just like, I screwed up and wore orange shorts, so ass cheeks are chafed by mile 60. I've got the 2 Tums wipes, and I just stick it in my ass crack and just change it every 10 miles, like really crushing it. 10 out of 10, but it worked. My ass felt better. And so, I had like Vaseline and it's labeled asshole lube in my backpack. And I'm like, can you get out my asshole lube, Saul? And my wet wipes, like, oh, let's take care of this, just, and I'm like reaching, like, here, put some ice in my shirt. Or I just gave him permission. I'm like, look, I don't care. You've seen me shit like on the trails. Nothing is sacred anymore. Like, just drop some ice down my pants. Look like I shit and piss myself. I did not. I would own it and laugh about it if I did, but I didn't. There was none of that. But it was just, we just had fun. We were laughing, and by gosh, mile 85, I knew I was going to finish under the cutoff, or it was going to be really, really close. And Carrie was like, look, if I got to wait here and give you a buckle, I will, because you deserve it. Like, just go, don't stop, just keep going. You got this. And, we get there. I never crashed mentally. I never felt so exhausted that I was going to die. I never, this sounds crazy, but I was thinking the whole time, I'm like, where's my pain cave? Because it's got to be harder than this. When does it get harder than this? Like, I can do so much more than I think. And it just felt insane to think that. I'm like, I'm not fast either. So maybe if I was pushing pace, I'd have a different story to tell. Like, oh, this was so awful. But, I'm a sexy pace kind of gal. Like, I'm an 11, 12-minute miles, and later in the race, 20, apparently. But Saul was like, look, dude, you can do 40-minute miles and still finish. I'm like, what? He's like, yeah, you're not shitting every 2 miles now. Your stomach's settled. I'm feeding you real food. Like, we're good. But don't do 40-minute miles, but you could, so you bought yourself a little time window. Keep going at this pace. You're going to do fine. There was this super old woman who was just a badass, crushing it, maybe in her late 60s. I don't even know. We just called her grandma. Like, bless her heart. I love her. We're Facebook friends. You're my hero. But Saul was watching her, Saul and I, crushing these hills at like mile 85. And he's like, look, you can't let this woman crush you. Like, go catch her. So I'm like, power hiking and shuffling and jogging and like trying to jog up hills at mile 85, just laughing hysterically. I mean, it was so fun. And it's like, if you can't have fun, you shouldn't be out here doing this. It doesn't have to be serious. And, in mile 92, it was like towards the end of the peak heat, the days finishing up, it was exhausting, but I'm still mentally good. But I did have a moment of like crashing, and just like, I told Saul, I'm like, I just feel like death for a moment. Like, talk to me, tell me about Lithuania, about Seattle, like, just talk to me. I may not even be able to respond. I had that moment where I was like, okay. And in that moment, I stopped and had a talk with my body. I probably did this a few times, but I literally talked to it like it's an animal, or like I'm separate from my consciousness, and I'm like, look, like, this is your higher self speaking, kind of thing. And like, look, we're going to finish 100 miles today. I know you're tired. I know you're hungry. You want a good meal. You want a cold beer, whatever it is you want, like, you want to smash 17 burgers. That's what I wanted. 17 burgers, cheese, really, just grease, give it to me. I wanted it, hot food, real food, a nice cold, hazy, gross IPA, like, give it to me, And so that's what I wanted at mile 92. I'm telling my body, I'm like, it's okay. Like, we're sweaty. We need to shower. We need to fix our feet. Like, I'm going to take care of you, I promise. But right now we're doing this no matter what. If we're alive, if there's a heartbeat, if I've got a pulse, we're going to keep moving forward. I've got my poles, like, we are going to waddle this God blessed corpse to that finish line. no matter what. So like we can do this kicking and screaming, or we can do this in coherence. We can work together. And I had these talks with my body, and I swear to God that my body just got it together. And I was happy and talking again within like maybe 2 miles, which might have took 40 minutes at that stage. But it was peak heat. We're sweaty. We're miserable. Like nothing sounds good to eat at that point. Saul's feeding me bananas, and I'm eating all this chewing gum because it was like waking up my brain, and your mouth gets so dry. But God, it was just like, again, mile 95, mile 98. I'm like, this is so fun. Like, I'm so happy to be here. I'm so grateful. Like, it's the only thing I have to do. I don't have to feed my kid. I don't have to put her to bed tonight. Like, I've got people I can trust. My phone's on airplane mode the whole time. This is the only thing I have to do is run 100 miles. And with losing funding with the nonprofit and being a single mom and finishing my master's degree, and people want to pay me 30 grand a year and rent's $5,000 a month in Denver. It's like, no, like this is the easy part of my life. And I just felt so much gratitude to be so loved that people come out to run with me, and these people are fixing my feet, and Angie signed up to run 100 miles with me, and I know she's going to finish and crush it. And, I just, the whole damn time, but there's still that like tiny piece of fear left of until my watch rolls over to 100, I didn't do it, even though I know I'm doing it. I know I'm going to do it. My heart, my heart knows. The brain thinks, the heart knows. It was like I saw my watch roll over to 100. We weren't at the finish line. We still had about a mile to go, 0.7 miles to go, which, I could care less about. I stopped and peed on the trail, and like it's the running. Had Saul take a video. He was great. He kept social media updated, family, friends. I mean, he was just my angel. And he took pictures and videos. I took zero. Like this is my job. I'm doing this. I'm running 100 miles today. That's it. Determined. It doesn't have to be pretty. I don't have to be first place. I don't care about that. I'm just, it'd be great to make the cutoff. If I don't, I'm still running 100 miles today. Like, this is just what we're doing today, body. And so, he took a video after I peed, and I was like, I just peed and I farted and I didn't even shit myself. Like at mile 100, you can do anything, like if you can do that, life is good. Like, again, I'm like, it's gotta be harder than this, and there was like almost 14,000 feet of gain. So it's not insignificant. Leadville's 17,000. So it's up there. It wasn't, but super elites will say that's flat. It did not feel flat. It was very much like you're always going up a dang hill, but it's a lot. And Carrie met me, and my daughter was there, my friend Mai, and she brought all these people who do Dr. Joe meditations, who saw my story. I've given testimonials. I can give you links and stuff. There's one on Instagram from the Give to Give Foundation, who sponsored my first week-long retreat when I was broke financially. And they do that. They help people who are sick go heal at these retreats and learn the science. And then so all these people saw my testimonials on Dr. Joe Dispenza's. They did a test. It's older, I'd only just run a 5K then, but I'd healed most things, and they actually reached out. They're going to interview me again in Denver this summer because they're like, we need an update. This is great. You're right. Like, we're all close, it's like family. So she's like, got all these Joe Dispenza people. We're like, we got to meet this girl. They're trying to heal things in their lives, and some of them have and are, but they're like, you're the living example of truth. So my daughter's got this sign. So when I met Mai at the Joe Dispenza Advanced Follow-Up January of last year, it was, just a year ago, I guess. And we met at the airport. We were going to share an Uber. We met this other awesome woman, Anna, who also lives in Vegas, and I got to see her. But, she ended up renting a car. We all drove together. We bonded, became sisters at this retreat. And at the advanced follow-up, it's after you've been to a week long. You can kind of just dive into the big stuff without all the science lessons. And, it's like you're in a college class when you go to these retreats. It's phenomenal. 11 out of 10 recommend. But we dress as our future selves. And at that point, I had not run a marathon yet. I was injured, had all these awful shin splints and borderline stress fractures, just PF like crazy, all this crap, and I didn't know. It's like Achilles tendonitis, and just everything was bad. And so, but my future self, I made a fake like 100-mile bib, and I wore my running gear, my vest, and I dressed as my future self. And I guess the girls had a picture of me dressed as my future self, and she printed it out. Like, there's so many cute pictures of my daughter and my making this stuff. And my daughter, got my daughter this little pink cape, and she got one for me, that, superhero cape, and stuffed it in my back. The last 10 miles they were there just waiting the whole time to see me finish. They knew I would. And like, I put it on at the finish line just for my daughter. And, she met me there, and she's got her sign, like, you're my hero and the future is now. And just a year later, I went from finishing a 5K to, like, crossing the finish line at a 100-mile race. And it just felt like, you when you're creating your life, your future with neuroplasticity, and you feel like how I feel now, I felt this feeling so many times in my meditations and my guided self-reflections, that when you get the thing you came here for, you almost feel nothing. Like, I cried at mile 90 when I saw my daughter with the sign, the future's now. She's got her cape. She runs up, puts one on me, but Saul's like, no, keep going. They're going to let you finish. Like, you can't screw around at this aid station. If you've got to poop, go on the trail up there. I'm like, don't stop here because they're going to pull you, kind of thing. I'll run up the hill with your vest. I'll get everything you need. I got you. Just keep moving your body and you will make it. So, when I saw her at mile 90, I was bawling, but when I crossed the finish line, like, it wasn't that I felt nothing. I was just in awe. I was grateful. I wasn't wrecked. I wasn't like, I'm never doing this again. I just felt so much love in my heart, but also I felt that truth. It was like the stamp, like that truth in your heart, before you do the thing. And it's like, see, I told you, we've already done this. Maybe it's a quantum reality. Maybe it's just that knowing, but it was just that, like, we did it, now I want my 17 cheeseburgers and a beer, and, to get this tape off my feet and take a shower and sleep for 14 hours, just whatever I need, I'm going to do. And it just felt so good. And, my goal in life, part of my degree is consciousness and human potential in my master's program that I just completed. And I just always had this obsession with human potential. Courtney Dauwalter is my hero. I love her so much. She's just, her demeanor, she's charismatic, and that you really can do so much more than you think. And what I wanted to tell people before my race was, like, don't overthink it. I thought that I would feel that way, and I do. Like, I really just didn't overthink things. I didn't obsess over training. And yeah, I could have done better. I could have done a lot different, but I'm not upset about a single part of it, because I learned I can run on completely wrecked feet for 93 miles and I won't die. I learned that it really is just pain. And my whole body really wasn't that screwed afterwards. I was able to go for a light jog 2 days after the race. I didn't push it because I know, like, you don't want to screw up your kidneys. You got to detox, all that stuff. But I knew you can do so much more than you think. And there's so many people who wait for the right moment. It's like giving birth, like becoming a parent, whatever it is. And maybe it's the wrong thing to say, but I'm very much I'm not going to sit and figure it out and write the numbers down and mathematically make it make sense. I'm going to do it and figure out what I'm doing while I'm doing it. And I've done that for a lot of my life. And I think that's why I'm still alive. And, for people who are afraid of the 100-mile distance, like, I couldn't get in more than a 42-mile week. If I went, not the Strava week, my Strava week was 40 miles. If I went Saturday to Saturday, it might have been 50. But, I didn't do 100-mile weeks. I didn't even do 100K weeks. I couldn't. I didn't have sitters and I had to work. And, so from start to finish, that's where I'm at.
So it sounds like you didn't really find the pain cave out there. Do you have a plan to go further than the 100 anytime soon?
Yep. I had moments where I was like, is this the pain cave? Like, I'd never suffered, but I believe suffering is a mindset. And I don't think that I'm wired to suffer. I don't think that I'm truly wired to feel pain the way that others are. Maybe it was 30 years of Lyme disease where you have so much pain that you can't feel it anymore because it will kill you. And like having the worst flu of your life every day of your life. And I just had to try to function every day like that. So when that went away, I was like, yes, I forgot what it feels like to feel good, or maybe I'd never felt good. So, to have some pain doing what I love, it just didn't and it didn't wreck me, or maybe I'll get my ass handed to me in my next race and that's fine. But so far I really think it's like if you get your mind and your heart in alignment, you really can do anything. So I'd love to. In my mind, I was like, I want to do one of these every month. I do have a little tiny bit of numbness in the tips of my toes. It's getting better already. It's 3 weeks out. My friend Jonathan Gertz, another one of my heroes, I just love him to pieces. Such a great human. Also works in the nonprofit world. So I feel like he coaches me. We'll go for runs once a week, and him and his wife work for nonprofits. He gives me his wisdom. We talk about running and just such great humans, such great wisdom. But he told me that sometimes it takes them 6 months to get that numbness to go away. Your nerves are rebuilding, and I understand neurology, but so I was going to do another one at the end of next month, but I feel like it would be dumb. I want to love my body, and it did a really powerful thing for me. So I want to give back to my body. So I'm thinking about, I've got like a low key 55K in Estes Park coming up because I deferred a 50K to run 100 miles instead. And now I'm like not really interested in any distance smaller than 100 miles, but I feel like it'll be good training. It'll keep me steady. It's over my birthday weekend. My daughter's got Girl Scouts camp. So I'm like, why not? We'll run with some friends. We'll party, just like party. We're going to be running and eating gels and cookies, and, dump my bladder, my water reservoir, and just like pack a whole brisket in there with foil. I think that's my next plan. But yeah, no, so I've got that. I might do Never Summer. It's one of the harder 100Ks. And then I feel like that would be really good training, more training than I've ever done for Crown Step 100. Apparently, no woman has ever finished for whatever reason. Maybe it's really muddy. Maybe it's slippery. I think it's in Oregon. I don't do a very good job doing research. When I signed up for my 100, I couldn't even tell you if it was loops, didn't know how the elevate. I didn't care. I just knew, I knew the truth in my heart. I was like, okay, we're going to do this. So Crown Step 100 is October 4th. So I potentially might get sponsored to run it. There's a dude influencer, Chad runs ultras, who found me on BUA, Bad Ultra Running Advice, and called me out. He's like, no woman's ever finished this. And, he didn't even know my whole story. He learned it, about how a couple years ago I was dying and crossing finish lines and, undertrained and all that stuff. So, I think he's really inspired. And on May 4th, he'll pick someone. If he picks me, I'll run it. And I might just run it anyway, even if he doesn't, because now I'm like, wait, no one's ever finished. I've got to do this. One of the funny things that happened with the bootleg boogie 100 that I finished is that a lot of people DNF'd. That's not the funny part. The funny part is because so many people DNF'd, I actually finished third place female because only 3 women finished. So, and some people can say like, well, of course, I finished DFL, but I had 40 minutes on that time clock. I wasn't, and that's cutting it close. But in the beginning I had, 20-minute miles or bust. And then it was just like, okay, we have 40 minutes and we still crossed the finish line. Hell yeah. But, I'll take the win as third place female because that race was freaking tough. And my friend Mark was like, the only other harder race I've done was Leadville. Like, this is actually really hard for only 14,000 feet of gain. And like, what's her name? Katra, I think is her name. She's one of the badass ultra running women. She had a DNF. Like, she just had a hard day. And like the Jester DNF'd, like, so I'm like, okay, like maybe I don't suck, maybe it was really hard because I have the grit. Like, I do deserve that third place female. I made the podium by default, but I'll freaking take it because not everyone can run 100. Well, maybe they can, but running 100 miles is hard, and it's mental, it's physical. So, the fact that no woman's finished the Crown Step 100, like, I think you should run it too, Amanda. Like, let's go, have a bunch of women finish this year and just crush it.
I plan on being there. I was going to be there last year. It was actually a new race last year. So no woman finished last year, which that's hence no woman has finished. But yeah, I had some friends do it, and I know Chad because I'm up in Tacoma. So
Oh yeah.
yeah. So I know of him. I've met him at a couple of races, but I plan on being there. So if you're there, we'll be there to cheer each other on.
I love it. I'm a back of the pack so far. It doesn't mean I can't do speed work over the summer. I should probably work on my radical acceptance. Like I just own that I'm slow and I'm okay with it. But I'm like, you could actually work on that and do better. Ugh. Yeah, no, I will. But I think it'd be fun, like it'd be great to see you there.
Yeah, definitely. Well, forward is a pace no matter what. Um, but I'm excited to see what you do the rest of this year. Would you let our listeners know where they can follow your journey, see what you get done and finish this year?
Yeah, absolutely. You can check out my Instagram. It's Kendra_rising. And if you scroll way down, I did delete a lot of like the old victim sick people because it's not my identity anymore. But I might have left a few on there just so people can see. And again, if you find my first 5K finish, if you scroll through the pictures, there's a group of them. You can see my labs. Some of them, not all of them. I have the cancer one somewhere. But it's in there. Kendra_rising on Instagram. My nonprofit is Global Coherence Project. It's just www.globalcoherenceproject.org. I know it's a really long name, GCP for short. It's a work in progress. When we get funding, we work on things, we make our recordings better, but everything's free. So for athletes, I've had quite a lot of athletes. I did a little brief, like just kind of like a case study with surveys with athletes who practice just taking 5 minutes before a day, and then before a race and performing better because you're getting your mind right. You're taking 5 minutes for yourself to get out of fight or flight. And, one athlete, Jessica McBride, she's on the Canadian team, ultra running team. She had a lot of issues with rhabdo and she couldn't do long distances. She's talked about this publicly. It's not like a secret or anything. But she's like, what do I have to lose? I'm going to do this. And she got on the team and she ran for ultra. She didn't get rhabdo this time. Not saying that's what did it, but I really think the power is within you. And if you can just kind of like get your mind right, I really think you can do way more than you think you could do. So, definitely if you feel like showing some love, we definitely have lost federal funding, which is a big source of grants right now. It doesn't mean there are no other options, but right now everybody's kind of holding on to their money. Foundations are not really giving grants right now, so things have been tough. I'm like, it's fine. There's always a million other things to do to make money, but this is definitely the dream. And we're working in public schools, we're helping people, we're changing lives, and we've got kids doing this every day, changing the dynamic of the school system and, seeing a lot of miracles happen just with taking 5 minutes a day. So, our mission's big, but we definitely need support. So if anyone feels, but use our resources, they're free and that's not going anywhere ever. So, I just want to share the love with people.
Well, thank you. I appreciate you coming on and sharing your story. I think a lot of people are going to gain inspiration from hearing it. And to our listeners out there, please check out the Global Coherence Project and see what you can gain from the mind consciousness connection, meditation, all of that stuff. But if you like this episode and our other episodes, like, share, follow us wherever you get your episodes. Until next time, have a good one.